Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad to have you with us. We have a little bit of a smaller group today of our attendees, but we have a lot of people here who are here to do what you asked. You asked that we provide a webinar where you had a chance to ask some questions directly, and we could spend a little bit more time in all of that, and so that's what we're going to do today. So as we go through, you're going to have an opportunity to meet and greet and ask a lot of questions of a lot of different people. So just so you know, as you're sitting there now, if you look at your control panel, your dashboard, you actually see a number of things. So if your audio is doing just fine right now, no problem. But should you run into a problem, you can open up that audio component and you can switch over to your computer, or even if you need to dial in. Occasionally we have people who will lose their audio for different reasons. The other thing that you'll notice as you go through is there's also a question box that's there, and you can see that it's been little arrows pointing to it. And so you can actually put your questions in there. We're going to ask you to do some things as we go through this particular webinar, so we'll be referring to that questions. Unlike Zoom and some of the other things, chat works a little differently here, so we won't be using the chat menu as far as that goes, so don't worry about that one. But also you should see where it says handouts instead of 0 of 5, you're going to see handouts and it's got a little 1 right beside it. You can actually open up that and you can download the handout so that you have that as you're going through. So if you need to reference any of these things, just kind of be aware of your screen there and your dashboard and what you're going to need to do as we go through. Now, my name is Susan Pittman. I am an education consultant with a GED testing service. My specialty is in PD, teacher training, and so I'll be one of the facilitators as we go through all of this. We're going to try to do this in a little organized manner, if at all possible, because I know you have questions from a lot of different areas. So kind of as we move through, we'll kind of try to lump those into certain categories so we keep everything on moving along. But first things first, I'd like to know where you're from. So if you would, go under the question box, and I want you to put in your name and then also, where are you from? I'm in North Carolina right now. And so it's a beautiful day in Western North Carolina in the mountains, but I want to know where everybody else is coming from. So let's take a look. So we have Christy King, I saw from Maryland, I think it was, and we've got people from Texas. We have people coming in from Pittsburgh, California. And also we have Houston, Texas, and Peoria, Illinois. I'm so glad to see every one of you here. This is great, and it's also great because today, one of the things you're going to do is you're going to have a chance to meet the state relationship managers. We call them SRMs, and you'll be able to meet each of those, and at the very end of this PowerPoint, you're actually going to find contact information so you can locate the person who is working with your state. They do a tremendous job out there working with everyone to get information out, make sure that, you know, if there's something going on, that they can help with all those different things. So whether you're from Michigan or we're seeing you from Texas or anywhere across the US, we're so glad to have all of you with us today. So I'm going to turn it over so we can have some words of wisdom here from CT Turner. CT is the Vice President for Global Operations, not just national, but global operations and government relations. So CT, can you welcome everybody for us?
Absolutely, welcome. You embarrassed me with the title. I'm just here at GED. I've been here for about 13 years, worked in lots of different aspects. I know many of you have heard from me or seen me on presentations in various capacities. I'm super excited you all are with us today. We get lots of questions, and so we wanted to have as many GED staff as possible, some that you might not have seen before or heard before, on today to help answer your questions. So very excited that you all are here, and looking forward to helping you serve adult learners here this next year.
Oh, thank you so much, CT. We really appreciate that. So what we're going to do, just to let everyone know here, as we move through, we're going to introduce some key GEDTS staff. You just met one of those in CT Turner. We're going to talk to some people who are from state relationship managers, product development, operations, marketing. We have people all over the place. And one of the things that we will focus on early on into this is we're going to dig deeper into some ongoing questions that you have asked about the online proctored, or as we call it, the OP test, so that you can see that. Plus, we have a lot of resources to go along with that, which is included at the very end of this PowerPoint itself. And as I said, you have the PowerPoint. It is under handouts, and you can download that to your computer whenever. And of course, our main purpose for being here today is all about responding to your questions and your concerns. So we're going to start off with regional state relationship managers, and Brian Smith, you are up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Brian Smith. I am a regional manager with GED Testing Service. I've been with GED for 9 years now, and I've worked with a lot of different states throughout that process. I'm based in Philadelphia, and so obviously I work with Pennsylvania, being here in Philadelphia. And with that, I will open it up to Jana McDonough Forsyth to introduce herself.
She might be having some trouble with audio. Do you want to do a quick introduction for her and let them know which state she's working with?
Sure. Yep, we've been having some technical difficulties. So Jana McDonough Forsyth's been with GED for over a year now, and she works with Texas, Mississippi, Washington, and helps out in California. So Liz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Liz Lanfear and I live in Kansas, and I take care of Arizona, Colorado, Hawaii, Kansas, Nevada, New Mexico, and Utah.
Whoa, that's quite an assortment there, Liz.
I don't get to go to Hawaii, but you know, it's okay.
Well,
everyone always asks me that question.
One can always hope.
Right?
Okay, so Scott, you're up.
Hey everyone, I'm Scott Baylesses. I'm part of the State Relationship Manager team. I joined GED Testing Service in 2011, so coming up on 10 years now this summer. I am based in Boston, so I do work with certainly folks from Massachusetts as the primary GED Testing Service contact, as well as some other states as well. So welcome everyone.
Okay, and Adora, how about taking it from there?
Absolutely. Hello, my name is Adora Beard. I've been with the GED Testing Service as a state relationship manager for I think going on 9 years, but I've been with GED Testing Service for 29 years in total. I have multiple states that I'm responsible for. The list is way long, so I'm not going to go there. I also I live in Maryland, and I work out of the Washington, D.C. office. that's it. I appreciate all that you all do for your students.
And we all noticed that Adora must have started when she was about 8 to have 29 years with the GED testing service. So, but from there, I'm going to pass it off to Thomas Ross. Thomas.
Hi, I'm State Relationship Manager who's been with GED Testing Service for about 7 years. I'm based in Iowa City, Iowa, and I'm glad to see some folks from my states on today. Thank you.
Fantastic. We're glad to have you with us. Okay, Iris, I don't believe is with us today, and neither is Debbie Fawcett. Debbie, well, actually, I see her that she's offline at this particular point in time. So she may be joining us, but you know Debbie, she's been my partner in crime when we've been doing a lot of the different Tuesdays for Teachers, but also she is a state relationship manager. But I do believe Melissa is here. So Melissa.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Hallstrand. I joined GED in 2012. I am based in Minnesota. Thank you for joining us today.
We're glad you could be with us, Melissa. All right, so we're going to pop over and let's talk a little bit about people who are in operations, product development, and also assessment. So Brent, you're up.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Brent Gerken, Operations Manager, the Tech Ops team. So I've been with GED for about 2 years. So formerly before that with Pearson. So I have a Pearson background, and I'm happy to be here with this great team. I think we're doing a great mission, and we're looking forward to helping give you great value with the GED product.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Chris Blaisdell.
Hello, my name is Chris Blaisdell, and I am the Product Portfolio Manager for GEDTS. I've been with the company for about 6 years now, and I was with Pearson for 10 years prior to that. I focus primarily on what products and services we can offer to make your lives a little bit better in order for you to better serve our students. So I work both with the SRM team very closely, as well as our technical teams and operations teams.
Okay, fantastic. And where would we be without Anne, who often joins us on these Tuesdays for Teachers looking at research? So Anne Evers.
Hi, hello everyone. Yes, I'm in DC and I'm on the services team, and I've been now brought in to work on the test as we created it brand new. And I get to enjoy the longest job title in GED testing service, as you can see there. Over product development, tests, innovation, which we try to capture it all in. See you all.
Okay, well, you were breaking up just a little bit on us, but we appreciate all that you do. I'm not sure if Gary is here or not. I don't believe he is. And I know that Ben isn't, but you should be aware that, yes, there is an international testing SRM, and you will even see all these different countries where Ben connects with everybody looking at the international marketing. But I don't know where we would all be without Danielle Wilson. So Danielle.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Danielle Wilson, the Communications Manager for GED Testing Service. I live in Maryland, but work out of our Washington, D.C. office. I've been with GED Testing Service for a little over 4 years, and I work with all of our internal and external PR and media relations. And this includes the monthly in-session newsletter, and I'm super happy to be with you all today.
Well, we're really happy to have everyone. And there is one more person who is here that she is remaining silent at this point in time, but you will hear of her. And she also responds quite often to if you're having some trouble with different things. And that is Tico Henry. She is the one who makes sure that all these different things get sent out to you and posting those handouts, all those different things. And so Tico is hiding behind the veil right now. But so here's how we're going to kind of approach all this with questions. And I know you have a lot of them. So we're going to take these different topics as we move through. We're going to start out with online proctored GED tests. That's going to be our first part. And Chris is going to go through and respond to some questions that everybody has out there right now about what all is happening and how does this work and what do I do if. Then we're going to move over to looking at content, operations. From there, we'll take a look at Tuesdays for Teachers and kind of PD in general, moving from that into GED Works, GED Prep. So when you have a question in those different areas, please chime on in. And even if you have a question and it doesn't quite fit in there, go ahead and put it in, because we're all monitoring the question box as we go through. So make sure that you're asking your question, because now is your opportunity. So having said that, Chris, I'm going to, I'll keep moving your slides for you, but if you could pop back in for us, please. I know that there's some frequently asked questions that people are just dying to know. So
yes, there are a number of questions that come in, both from our students and from educators. We also monitor the questions that are coming in through our call center agents. So I pulled a few of these questions from those channels and figured that I would answer these questions here, and hopefully that will spark some additional questions from all of you. If you have any anything you need to know, just chime in. All right, let's see. So where can I find the technical requirements for the OP test? So many of you may have seen that we have kind of high level about the OP test on our main page. Within the student account, there's a Learn More page. At the bottom of that Learn More page are the detailed technical requirements. We also have a more robust technical specifications sheet for educators who are utilizing their education center as a place for their students to take the OP test. So many of you know that the online proctored test is meant to be taken by an individual in their home, but obviously not all of our students have access to those resources, either the equipment or the internet, and so many educators are allowing students to take tests from their classroom. So if you do need those more detailed technical specifications, reach out to myself or your SRM and we will get those to you. We are probably going to also post them to the online proctored test page of the educators and admins website. What we're trying to do is make sure that we can link to the most recent document, because as View continues to improve the OnView software, they continue to tweak those technical specifications that are required to run that software. So we want to make sure that we are providing the most up-to-date information to everyone. All right, I'll keep going unless somebody tells me that we have some additional questions coming in.
Yeah, feel free to ask any question you have. You don't have to wait to see what we cover. If you got OP questions, that's what we're here for today.
Yep. All right, where are the instructions for underage test takers? We get this a lot because, for example, if you're an educator and you have gone through the process of creating a student account or you're simulating a student account through GED Manager, you may not think to change that DOB so that you can see what an underage test taker would look like in the student account. So I will just let you know that if an test taker is underage, when they go through the process of creating their account, they will get that age exception, which many of you are familiar with. Once that age exception is approved, they will get information about the online proctored test, but their information is going to be unique compared to an of age student. So the underage test taker, throughout their experience as they're learning about OP, they will have additional information letting them know that their parent or legal guardian needs to be present in order to grant consent for them to test. Now, we have had a number of educators who are working directly with underage students, perhaps as part of an option program or other alternate schooling program. And we have gotten approval from legal that an educator can fill in as that guardian to provide consent for the underage test taker to test. So in that case, what we're explaining in the Learn More section of the student's experience is that they need to make sure that they still have some sort of photo ID that they are bringing to their OP test, and that they will need their teacher, parent, legal guardian, someone of age with their government issued ID present at the time of check-in, so that they will still scan their photo ID as part of the check-in process, and they will indicate on that check-in process that they are underage, and then the proctor will come on and ask that they speak to, they may say the parent or legal guardian, or just they might say just parent. And at that time, the teacher needs to come on and say, I'm the student's guardian and I am here to give consent for the student to test. The proctor will ask to see the government issued ID of the teacher. They will hold it up to the camera, and then that consent has been given and the underage test taker will be allowed to test. And all of those instructions are there within the student's account. All right. Another one that comes up often is, why would a proctor interrupt my student's OP test? This is something we're seeing more of, and the students are getting frustrated. We're actually seeing a number of instances where a student yells at the proctor for interrupting them. This is a situation where the student is doing something that is against the online proctored testing rules. So it could be that they are talking out loud, or they might be looking at their phone, or they might be looking off into the window or off to the side. So any of these are examples of when a student is disobeying the online proctored exam rules. And so the proctor will end up opening the chat with the student. So they might send a text message through the computer to the student saying, you can't talk out loud during your test. Well, the student sometimes sees this as an interruption, and then they get mad and say something back. So one of the things that we're really trying to make sure everybody is aware of is make sure your students understand what those rules are and why a proctor might reach out to them to correct them. Because if they don't reach out, they have to reach out to the student to say, you know, you're breaking a rule here, please stop doing that. If the student doesn't stop doing that, then the proctor has to end the test and revoke that test score. So the proctor will always warn the student that they are breaking a rule first, but it is important that the students know what those rules are and that they understand that there is a live person watching them take the test, and that person might need to reach out to them for one reason or another. All right, I talked a little bit about this one with the first one. Can we allow students to test from our education center? We get this question a lot, and the answer is yes. If your classroom meets all of the requirements of the online proctored test conditions. So both from an environment standpoint, the student needs to have a private room. So it needs to be a room with 4 walls and a door that can close. If there are large windows that open up into hallways or other rooms, those really need to be blocked off in some way so that it's a private room. And all of that is obviously to keep the test secure and to prevent any inadvertent or blatant cheating. So those things need to be met. It needs to have an individual workstation, no extra monitors or other devices. The desk or workstation needs to be free of papers and pens and other materials. And then the equipment needs to meet the specifications as well. So it needs to be a computer or laptop with the webcam, audio, and then we also need to meet all of those system requirements. So all of those technical requirements. And the biggest challenge that we find our educators have is that most of you have firewalls. And so there's often challenges with downloading the OnView software through the firewall. So I would say before you start having students test at your center, make sure to involve your IT resources in getting the workstation set up and verify, run that system test, verify that all is going to work correctly from your workstation.
Chris, we had one question that came in regarding, is there any difference for an underage test taker if they're considered emancipated?
I don't believe so, no, because we're just looking at the date of birth. So okay. I don't know that there would be any way for us to get that qualification to know that in order to allow them to give consent for themselves to test.
Yeah, I responded to this one. I think that is tricky, and it's not really, I don't think it's really us, it's really state law having some clear data privacy requirements related to age. And so I think if we ran into that situation, we would need someone to consent, or you could reach out to help a GED testing service with that specific instance. I think we could work with you all, work with the student, and try to find some solution there if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's really good. And if I could, and I'm going to ask this of all of our SRMs and everyone who's answering questions, if you don't mind, when you send your answers, kind of make sure you send to all, and that way that everybody gets to see those things that are coming through, so it can be helpful to everyone as they're going through. So that being said, we have a few more questions. So Chris, what happens if the proctor says they can't see the student on the webcam?
Yes, so this is an interesting one. We're not sure why we continue to hear this. We think what's happening is that the student has gone through the system test and all looks good. They've gotten green check marks on their audio, on their internet connection, and their webcam. And so they are now waiting for the proctor to start their test. While they're waiting, it's possible that their internet connection becomes unstable. There isn't a way for them to see or know that necessarily, but what's happening then is that when the proctor comes to launch their test, the proctor does not see them on the webcam because that cloud connection with the live video streaming has been lost because it requires a full bandwidth of internet in order to maintain that live connection. And so the proctor will say, I can't see you on the webcam. You need to fix that, do something. So at that time, the student can certainly try to relaunch their test. And this is where, if they can see, oh, you're right, I can't see myself either, because while you're waiting in queue, you can see your video of yourself. If they can't see the video of themselves, then that webcam is not working. So they might need to just turn the webcam off and turn it back on again, or check the connection of the webcam to the computer. If they can see themselves, though, then it's more likely an internet issue. And so that's when they might need to check the bars of their internet to see what's going on. If they are at home, they can certainly, call out to somebody else in the family saying, get off the Wi-Fi, I need to have full bandwidth. Sometimes those are enough. The other option, though, is that they might need to relaunch their test. So in that case, they would need to exit the test, close it down, and then they would need to recheck in. Now, ideally, this is happening within that first few minutes. So we do recommend students check in for their test 30 minutes before their appointment. So if they have gone through the check-in process and now they're waiting and now the proctor comes on and says, I can't see you, they still have time where they can shut it down and then relaunch their test. They shouldn't need to completely reboot their system, but before relaunching their test, it would be good for them to check their internet connection and make sure that all is well with the internet connection. That's usually the culprit. Whenever there's a technical issue with their test, it's generally the internet connection.
Okay, well, we have another one. So, you know, if the exam is not, it's not that the exam is freezing, but if there's some kind of error during the exam, maybe on the OP side or the student side, and the exam is canceled, but then they go to reschedule and their account is frozen, so they're not letting us reschedule. So can you tell us what may be happening there?
I can think of a few different things that might have happened. If there was a problem, like a technical glitch in the exam itself, for example, this kind of leads into the second question that I have on the screen here. Sometimes if the internet connection goes down during the test, the student will receive a screen that says, oops, it looks like we lost your internet connection. Once you think you fixed it, click relaunch, and there's a relaunch button right there. So that's an example of when there might be a technical issue happening during the test. If the proctor loses the student and the student doesn't get any indication that something went wrong, like maybe their test just froze and there was no way, maybe they tried to reach out to the proctor to say, hey, my test is frozen, I can't do anything. More often than not, though, in that case, if the test is frozen, then the live chat with the proctor is probably not working either. If the proctor sees that, they may try and call the student's mobile phone to see if they can help the student reboot or get the computer working again, get the test working again. So if the student is seeing that there's something frozen on their screen, they should go ahead and grab their phone that was nearby in case the proctor is trying to call them and help them troubleshoot. When the later, like if there's some issue that happens during their test and they can't get back in, whether the proctor helped them or not, but now they were halfway through their test, they can't relaunch it because the check-in period has passed, there should be, in that case, there should be a result coming through. Sometimes there is a delay in when we get that result into our system. So if they have gotten booted out of their test for whatever reason and now they're not able to reschedule, generally they just need to wait like 12 hours at most, and then they'll be able to reschedule again. You can always call or email the call center explaining what happened, and they would help go ahead and reschedule the student at that time.
And it's preferable to wait the roughly 12 hours before calling in. Is that correct? So that the agent has the information, it's transferred over.
Yes,
Right.
Exactly.
There was a question that came, oops, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to go. So that's in the situation where there was just a technical glitch through no fault of anyone's, right? It just happened. There is another scenario in which the student's test score might be on hold, and that can be on hold for longer than 12 hours. And that would be if the student actually was doing something that was against exam rules and the proctor had to revoke their appointment. When the proctor revokes their appointment, it is put into a hold status while security is researching and investigating what happened. Once security has researched the situation, if they determine that the test score can stand, then they release that hold, and then the student's test score can be visible both in GED Manager and their account, and they can move on with either rescheduling or retaking or whatever they need to do. So there's two different scenarios. One is where there might have been something against the rules happening, and that's when it's on hold. The other is just a technical glitch where you just have to wait 12 hours before you can take next steps.
Hey, there was a question that came in about built-in breaks or scheduled breaks, how those are handled in OP, specifically with RLA.
Yep, that is handled in much the same way it is in the test center. So the RLA OP test has the same break, scheduled break that the RLA in-person test has. So at that time, the student can take their break. They'll be told how much time they have. It is up to them to, only take that amount of time. Leave, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, whatever they need to do, and then come back to their computer and restart. And there will be something on the screen explaining that to them that they can click and resume their test.
Okay, so let's just briefly, if we could, because I know we've got other types of questions that are coming in, but Chris, can you just give us we have some troubleshooting issues here that I think everybody should be aware of.
Yeah, so a couple of things about the system test. The OnView team has made the new system test more robust in that it is now verifying that cloud connectivity that's necessary for the online video streaming connection. So we recommend that students run through both the system test within their GED account as a preliminary check to make sure that they have the correct equipment, and then run through the system test after they schedule their online proctored test on the view side. So as they go through the scheduling process, they'll schedule their test and then it'll say, it's time to run your system test. We recommend that they do that from the computer that they plan to test on, because that'll be that more robust verification that their internet is strong enough, that that cloud connection can be made, and that they're good to go for taking their test. So we understand that sometimes students go ahead and schedule their test from their mobile phone. That's okay. But ideally, we really want them to run that system test from the computer that they're going to be testing on, so that they can make sure that everything is good to go. We also want to make sure to remind students, if you're testing from a laptop, plug it in. We tend to think that our laptops, on a normal day, I can go all day without having it plugged in and recharging, it's fine. But when you are doing that live cloud streaming, it drains batteries a lot faster. And so they should plug in their laptop before their test. The other one I mentioned earlier about making sure everybody else is off the internet or any other applications that you have in your home that are continually streaming and pinging the internet, turn those off so that they have full bandwidth for their test. And then just a note that if they can't see themselves in that little webcam window, the webcam is not working, and they need to get that fixed before they can test. The last thing I'll just say about troubleshooting issues, if at any point, if your student is testing from your center and they are immediately having issues with the check-in process or some other technical glitch, just have them reschedule right away while they still can. Then you have time to resolve whatever technical issue is happening, figure out what's going on, reach out for help if needed, and then they can always, just reschedule for a couple days in the future, and then they can always go in and revise that specific appointment time when they have figured out what's going on with the technical issues. All right.
And I think you also said a couple of things about proctor communications.
Yep. I think this is I think we already talked about this a little bit. The proctor is going to reach out to the student through the chat feature. If they can't get them through chat, then they will verbally reach out through the computer. And then they will, if that's not working, then they'll try and reach them through the mobile phone.
All right. So I want to make sure, though, that one thing everybody should be aware of is at the very end of this PowerPoint, Chris has done an amazing job of putting together a whole host of resources and screenshots and everything else that you can go through and take a look at those different pieces, because that can make a huge difference to you to actually have those things available. And we really appreciate that she was able to do that type of thing for us. So we have a couple of other questions, and so we're going to kind of move over. Thank you, Chris, and also to CT. We're going to look at some content issues. So if you got questions about content, I know I see someone who's coming in with one about materials. operations or something with the research, then please chime in at this point so that you can ask your questions. We wanted to make sure that you have time in order to do that. One thing I know that I hear quite often from people is that when it comes to GED content, and I'm going to ask, let's see, I'm going to have one of our SRMs come in on this. So Brian Smith, I'm going to put you on the hot spot. But when it comes to content, is there any difference between testing in a test center or the content when you're doing an online proctor test? Is there anything different there?
There isn't, actually. It's all the same content that's being covered on the GED online proctor test, just as it is if you're taking a test in person. There are different forms that are available on the online proctor test that are available on the in-person. So we're not using the same forms. Those are different forms, but all of the content is the same.
So let me ask this particular question, and I'll toss this one out to Scott. Scott, is there some special stuff that you have to do from a content standpoint? Like, you know, is the student using scratch paper, or, you know, do they have their calculator with them? Any of those things?
So there are some differences between the online proctor test versus the in-person test of the test center. So when they go into a test center, students will receive an erasable noteboard and a pen to use for note taking, and they can also use a handheld calculator. With the online proctor GED test, they are not able to use an erasable noteboard or any pen or paper. They have what we call a virtual whiteboard, which they can use to kind of try to work out math problems. It works especially well for. And they have something we call a scratch pad, which I would say would be most effective for putting together a quick outline before your extended response in language arts. And also they can use the on-screen calculator with the online proctor test, but not a handheld calculator. And those are all security related reasons why they can't use paper or a handheld calculator. So they definitely want to be familiar with some of those features, such as being comfortable using the online calculator, as well as that virtual whiteboard that I talked about, and they can practice with that certainly.
Okay, sounds good. I see that, I think Debbie Fawcett has popped in here. Debbie?
She was just teasing us.
Oh, okay, she was just teasing us. All right, well, that's okay. We'll let her do that. But Brent, if I could ask you quickly, can you tell us what you mean when you say GED operations?
Sure. So operations really involves all of GED. So the department I help manage, the tech ops team, is responsible for really third tier support for all of the questions that come in, to asking all the things we do with our vendors, our contracts team, our technical teams. So really all aspects of what GED does goes through our operations team to help the questions, kind of keep the ball rolling, keep things moving, so there's no stopgap at one particular area that causes causes problems for the testers, if that helps.
Okay, so if we have people who run into issues like trying to, or they're operating a test center or anything like that, do they have specific contacts that they reach out to if they run into a problem?
Right, so on our website there, we do have different resources for it. For a test center, by chance, we have a contact numbers that they can reach out to reach to our some of our view teams, our project coordinator teams or the channel sales team or the channel teams that can help resolve issues if, depending on what the issue is. We have dedicated teams that are responsible for handling, a certain test center or whatever the issue is. For the most part, the students or educators may reach out to the help desk at help@gd.com, and then they can escalate from there. That's typically the path that they usually take.
Yeah, just to help clarify, this is CT, just to help clarify really quick. So there are really two paths and two different numbers. So help@gd.com, that's, general, mostly for students, and then also for educators. If they are a test center, there is a dedicated line that will go to experts that can help them on the test center side.
Okay, that's perfect, because I think that's one of the things that, so many times, CT, we have people the teachers who are doing their best trying to help their students get through different issues or concerns, and they may not always know where to turn to get the right person connected with that student so that they can help in that way. So it's good to know that there are different avenues that people can take in order to do that. I have a question over here, and I'm going to leave this off to Ann Evers. What kind of research are y'all doing?
I thought you were going to ask me that one. Can you hear me okay now?
I sure can.
Okay, great. So research, we do a lot of research from the assessment services team to better the experience for our test takers. We're talking a lot about OP here, so I'll just keep it narrow to that. Really working closely with Chris and other people on the team to create the best experience and prepare them. Just as Scott talked about all of those practice materials for the whiteboard and the videos when we talk about the exam rules. The research is bringing a lot of focus on the OP test right now. So there's many other things that we do for the materials. I can see a lot of people asking for materials that we try to make sure that they are best aligned with the test.
Okay, so when you say that they're best aligned, exactly what do you mean by that? I mean, what kind of process do we have? I mean, can just anybody have materials and have the GED name on it?
No, that they cannot. We at the assessment services team look closely at the content of those materials that publishers put out there, and then we give it the certification that you can see on our marketplace. But every time that someone wants to use something, we want to make sure that it's the best possible product for them.
Okay, so Anne, maybe you can answer this question. Are students doing as well on the GED OP test as they do on the test when they go into a center?
Yes, we've been watching very closely at that aspect, and especially since they've been taking the GED Ready and scoring green, that we know is a good predictor that if they go in and take the actual test that they're going to pass. So far we've been monitoring and making sure that there aren't any big changes. As Brian said, the test content is the same, the way that the breaks are for RLA and all of that's good stuff. Nothing has changed. So we continue to monitor, but they are doing quite well, being very successful.
Oh, yay, that's good to know, because we want to make sure that our students, that if we send them off into that big brave world out there, and out they go, and are they doing okay when they're taking something that's so very different for all of us? So that's really good to know. Thank you. Adora, I'm going to ask you a quick question here, because I have one from Beatrice, and she's really teaching GED reading, and she wants to know, are there some materials out there that people can access to help with the reading portion, or like RLA?
Absolutely, Beatrice. Let me just say that on our website, if you go to GED.com under the Educator and Admins tab, under teaching resources or free materials, you will find everything that you need related to how to best help your student with RLA and reading. And one of the things that I want to draw your attention to in particular is for RLA, there is the extended response information that's out there for the writing portion of the GED. For the RLA, you also will find content that's out there that you can use and tools that you can use out there for your use, like the performance level descriptors are there, the high impact indicators are out there, a plethora of tools and resources for you. So please do venture out onto our website and you can find everything that you need pertaining to content and how to help enhance what you're already doing in the classroom.
Fantastic. Now, I have to, I'll also put a little plug in, even though we're going to this in just a minute, that don't forget there are also some things that are listed. We put together some lists when COVID first happened. We put lists of different websites and different things that are there. So that's listed on the GED.com website. But also, we've done a number, and this for Beatrice, we've done several webinars that focus in on different content areas. And one that we've talked about quite a bit has been reading. So you may want to take a look over at the past webinars. We keep everything archived, and that way you can go back and pull some of those resources as well. So we'll make sure that, you know, and we'll try to answer a few more of those. I want to ask first, before we move on to that next section, do we have anything else that deals with like the content or operations or research? Okay, well, Karen has a comment here. Is it okay for me to share with the group that Kaplan GED Prep book is excellent? Hey, we're glad for people to share different ideas and resources that they have.
There was a question about mixing and matching English and Spanish.
Okay.
And that I might need Ann or someone's help. I think, you know, our recommendation is to allow students to do that, but I believe we still have a couple of jurisdictions who will not allow them to mix and match. Is that correct? Does anyone know off the top of their head which jurisdictions or how many?
You're correct, CT. It's really up to the jurisdictions, but I don't know how many.
Okay, so in other words, Matthew, for your question that you have, why can't you mix and match? And that really, when they talk about jurisdictions, CT, why don't you give us a definition for what you mean by jurisdiction?
Sure, sorry, a state. And we say jurisdiction because we have DC and some other folks, Virgin Islands, that aren't technically states. So just kind of an internal catch-all jargon, but we mean states.
You know, we're an adult ed. We've never used jargon. I mean, come on now. That's, you know, I mean, our life is made up of jargon as far as that goes. So that's one of those items that's out there. One other thing that's popped in, and can someone, CT, I don't know if it's you or if you want to pass this question on to someone else. What's GED Manager?
I'd love to pass that one over to one of our SRMs.
Okay. Then.
How about Liz? Liz or Thomas?
I'll take it. GED Manager is your best friend. I really work hard in my states to push that all instructors need to have access, or at least lead instructors need to have access to GED Manager. And the reason why is because it allows you to see those students who opt in to share their data with you. It allows you to see their test scores. And this happened to me when I was in the field, is that I had access, but my teachers didn't. And so they would have to constantly come to me and ask me how Johnny was doing. And it was like, this is crazy. Why can't you look and see what Johnny's doing? So we made that push in our state to allow our teachers to have access to that. And it allows you to catch them just in time of, they've stopped out, you're not sure what's going on. Did they take the test and pass? And that's why they're not coming back. I want to be able to congratulate them. It allows you to do that. Or did they take the pass and miss it by a point, and now they're embarrassed and don't want to come in because you asked them to wait 2 weeks to get ready. So it allows you to text them and say, hey, Johnny, I know you missed by 1 point. I know we can get this. Come on back in and let's get it done. So to me, that's how teachers use it. It also has a feature called Prep Connect, which allows you to see student or potential students that are out there wanting to connect with your center to get more information about classes. So those are just two of the features that I'll stop at that, but you can tell I'm very excited about GED Manager, and it really does become your best friend.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Liz. I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to go back to Ann Evers, because Ann, there is a question here that says, will there ever be an option for students whose main language is not English or Spanish to be allowed for longer testing on the test? So if you're taking the GED in English, but your native language happened to be German, or maybe your native language was Chinese, why can't they have extra time on the test?
Because of the language issue only. We're not going to create any new language tests in different languages, but that is an interesting question. I'm not too sure.
I can actually answer that one, Anne.
Okay, great.
Okay, Chris.
I just learned this from Debbie Burkholdt, who is our accommodations guru, and she is it's her and her team who approve all of the accommodations that come through, and she has said that the ADA does not consider English as a second language to be a necessary accommodation. It's not about accessibility. They consider it a life qualification, I think, or life condition. And so it's not under the ADA laws. English being a second language does not qualify you for any kind of testing accommodation.
And this is CT. I know we've had discussions on this in the past, and one of the issues I believe there are other, I don't know about high stakes tests, but other testing programs in some capacities in K-12 that do some of this. One of the issues we run into is qualifying the folks. And, how do you say, yes, this person qualifies for it, no, this person doesn't, and then you kind of run into some fairness issues about people getting extra time and just being able to qualify that. So I know that's kind of another set of issues that come with that one.
Okay, well, in that particular case, because my response back to Gail comes back to the ADA issue, and also the fact that if you're taking the test in English, you should have that proficiency. But we have another issue, and this one is, and I'll let someone answer it, but is the Spanish extended response evaluated based on Spanish grammar?
Now I can get that one, Susan. So,
okay, go for it.
As you all should know, the rubric for the extended response is a 3-trait rubric. The first trait is for the argumentative writing part. The second trait is for their organizational thoughts and how they organize their thoughts. And the third is in English, the English conventions. And in Spanish, we have a separate one for Spanish conventions. So we have created it as such, and it is hand scored, the extended response for Spanish.
And that's a good point for everyone to know, that takes a little bit longer for the Spanish to be scored, because you do have to have someone, a reader, who is there, correct?
A reader for Spanish?
The hand scoring for it.
Yeah, hand scoring. They are Spanish speakers and they have their rubric and then they score it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, and this is something, and this comes from me as a teacher, and also from a PD standpoint. One of the difficulties that many of our Spanish speakers have is that they speak Spanish just fine. In fact, that may be the language they use at home, at the workplace. But when it comes to writing, and even when it comes to reading in a more formal way, there are students who struggle on the Spanish test. You know, because we always have that decision: does the student take it in Spanish or do they take it in English? You know, those who truly are bilingual. So, I mean, those are things you have to keep in mind, but especially you get into that writing, and that's a little different creature when you're working with understanding Spanish grammar and the conventions that are included there.
Yes.
While we're on Spanish, I will ask if there are any SRMs who have heard anything from anybody about some good books to use when they're doing Spanish, when they're teaching Spanish.
Well, this is Brian. I did send a link. I went to GED Marketplace where we have all of our publishing partners, and I did a filter of books, and then I did a filter through of Spanish books. And so I sent that link. So that has all the Spanish materials that are in book form through GED Marketplace. And what's great about our marketplace is those are all publishers we work with, so you can be sure that their content is fully aligned to the GED tests. But I'll let other SRMs chime in if they know of which specific books they would recommend.
And that brings us to Tuesdays for Teachers and PD. And I will tell you that there is a webinar that is out there that we talked about Spanish, different types of resources that are available in Spanish, and a lot of things that you can access and students can access through the World Wide Web. So there are a number of different things, but you can look in the archives for some of those things as well. Let's see. When you go in, let's see, let me take a look, make sure that we're getting the different ones. This is Ruth coming back. Can you name those two programs again, please, that allow teachers to see students' progress? And that, I think, goes back to GED Manager and GED Prep Connect. Liz, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we have GED Manager and we have GED Prep Connect, which is coming up next, I think, as GED Works is, and then GED Connect. So a couple of other things. Keep in mind that Tuesdays for Teachers, we have been offering those every other month. This year, we have kind of increased that a little bit so that we could get more resources that are out there to you. If you require professional development, like within a state, you might want to reach out to the state relationship managers. In fact, I'll pass this off to Thomas. Thomas Ross, are you still doing some PD out there?
Oh, when I get the opportunity to, sure. If there are folks who are in North Carolina, they heard me recently. Wow, I feel like a comedian doing tour dates. I'm going to be in South Dakota, not in South Dakota, but virtually with South Dakota, and also with Delaware coming up. So, yeah, there you go. Okay,
great. Because that is something that SRMs very much can help you with PD. They, because we have lots of things that are going on via Zoom, lots of different sessions that are out there. Face-to-face has not been around, in this past year, but we're looking forward to maybe that resuming at some point as we're moving forward into the future. But if you have questions, we want you to make sure that you check in with that. Now, who is going to take on GED Works and explain just a little bit to everybody what it is?
This is CT. I'll go ahead and take it if no one's jumping on that. So GED Works is a program that we created at the behest of educators and really employers. And so what happens is employers offer GED Works as a benefit to their employees, and some employers actually offer it to family members of employees as well. And so at its base level, what it does is it's a program that is completely free to the learner. They have access to preparation materials. They can attend their local adult education classes. They have access to a GED advisor as part of the process. And then the big benefit here is that they have free GED practice tests and free GED testing. So at its basis, I would say that's what GED Works is. We have, I think last time I looked, almost 45 employers who offer GED Works, ranging from, pretty small companies up through KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut.
Okay, so, and can they find stuff about GED Works on the GED.com website?
They can, and what I would say is right now, when a student sets up their account and asks them if they're employed and asks them where they're employed, if they say yes, the reason we ask that question is because if they say yes and one of their employers is part of GED Works, they automatically get an email telling them that they could qualify for GED Works. If you have a student in your program who skipped that on the account setup, and you're working with them and you think they could benefit from free practice tests and free GED tests, all they need to do is, or you could do with them, is go into their GED.com account, go into their profile, and they would change that setting to say that they're employed, who they're employed with, and that again will trigger an email or communication to them letting them know about eligibility for GED Works.
Oh, fantastic. And I think we had a question in there, and Scott, I think you may have already taken care of it about GED Ready. A little troubleshooting there.
Yeah, I think the question was about if they're having issues maybe with GED Ready vouchers. And I think the best advice probably is to reach out to your state relationship manager. So in this case, I was going back and forth. I'm the state relationship manager for the in the state the person was asking about. So that was a good connection. But I would recommend you reach out to your state relationship manager. It'd be a good start if you're having specific voucher questions, or maybe you need vouchers extended or something like that.
Okay, so if a person, so when they buy the vouchers, like say, it's just as, I've done some work with Kentucky and like in Jefferson County, which is the Louisville area, and they had they were closed down for a long time. So can they get those vouchers reissued?
Yeah, we get this all the time. So adult ed programs often purchase GED test vouchers to provide to their students to pay for their tests, and or GED Ready practice test vouchers, where they're giving the practice test vouchers out to their students. So either one of those, GED test vouchers or GED Ready practice test vouchers, they both have expiration dates. However, we are happy to extend those expiration dates before they expire. That's very easy for us to do. So for instance, if you knew you had some vouchers that were set to expire on June 1st, you can just reach out to your state relationship manager. You just need to send them the spreadsheet or the document you already have the vouchers, and your state relationship manager could get those, extend those expiration dates of any of the vouchers you haven't used, of course, we could extend them another 6 months, another year. We're happy to do that. So that's the ideal scenario. If you have vouchers that have expired that are unused, we can issue replacements for you. It's just a significantly more time-consuming process to issue the replacements. So it's fabulous if you can get to us before your vouchers have expired, and we can do an extension of the expiration date, which we can get done within, typically 24 to 48 hours. If we need to replace the vouchers because they've already expired, though that's going to be a significantly longer process. We're talking probably weeks for that. But if you reach out to your state relationship manager, we can get this done for you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we have a question, and since this one is directed at state managers, this one's from Andrea, and she says, do the state managers work with their local adult ed programs to connect students to GED.com? She's kind of researching the student experience, and kind of concerned about, is there a way that is there any connection between the two? And don't all of you talk at once.
I think I would need clarification on that, of what she's asking. That the student can connect to GED.com on their own. So I'm not sure. We love to help in any way we can, but that's something that the student takes care of.
Okay, Liz, thank you for that. What I'll do is, Andrea, if you could, well, let's see, Andrea, if you could kind of type out a response for us, because everybody comes in muted. So that would really be helpful to us, and we'll try to get that answer for you. One other thing, Liz, you teased us just a little while ago about Prep Connect. So what is that?
Sure. Prep Connect is an opportunity that, as students or potential students are out there searching the website and they type in GED, GED.com would come up, and they naturally are curious and they start creating that account for themselves. And there's a section as they're creating their account that will ask them if they're interested in reaching out to an adult education center or receiving help studying, that type of thing. And within that questions section, if they say yes, then it will show them a zip code search. And it allows them to search and find the adult education centers that are close to them or close to where they work, whatever's going to be most convenient for them of where they want to study. And I know our students were always a little bit reserved, wanting to make that initial contact with an adult ed center. It's hard for them to walk in your doors and ask for help, but it's easier to click a button and say, yes, I'm interested in how I could connect with you to study. And so that's safe and comfortable for them. And so what that does is then it puts that name into your Prep Connect section of GED Manager and it pops them up in as interested. And so if you'll actually take time to learn how to use Prep Connect and work it, it is a whole list of potential candidates for your adult ed program that are saying that they're interested. They already are asking for information. And so if you'll contact your SRM, we can work through that process of how to use Prep Connect to take advantage of that opportunity to connect with potential students and increase your student base.
Fantastic, because I think that's, we all are trying to bring students in and trying to help in any way possible. And there's a resource for people, and it's a wonderful thing that they can ask for. And Andrea, thank you so much for clarifying just a little bit more on all of this. And I'm going to go to Brian and ask him, but Brian, if memory serves me correctly, you do a lot of work with states, but do you also get involved with local programs too, or is it primarily through the state itself and then larger programs, or kind of how does that work?
Yeah, so the role of the SRM is to really be involved with all stakeholders. So we work closely with directly with the adult ed programs when we can, and that's why we're hosting these webinars and giving you all our contact information, because we want you all to reach out to us when you have questions. But we also all work closely with the state office that oversees all the adult education programs and all the testing centers. So usually we'll have weekly or bi-weekly calls with each of our states, the leadership there, to make sure that we're we're supporting all the adult ed programs, but also supporting all of the testing centers that are offering the GED tests throughout the state. And then, increasingly, we're trying to work with other stakeholders, whether it's workforce boards, whether it's working with lawmakers. A lot of times there's legislation out there that impacts adult education that we're getting involved in. So our goal really is to work with everyone who would have an impact on adult learners so that we can improve the program within the state. So if you don't know your SRM, your state relationship manager, and haven't yet met them, if it's me or someone else, please reach out. We want to know you, and hopefully when things settle down a little bit, we'll be out back in the field and be able to meet you in person too. So that's really the role of the SRM, is to work with everyone who has a role within the state around adult education.
Susan, if I
Okay.
may take just a minute
Yes.
on Andrea's question. So I think this is just from my past experience here in this conversation, is we would love to connect students directly with your programs. However, the state legislators don't really love that. So the students have to opt in to share their information, their personal identifying information or test scores. And so it's, unfortunately, it's up to the students to do that. So what I would highly encourage you all to do, programs, educators, as much as possible, is when you can, and I know many programs that do this with their students during intake, or they do it in a class, they actually set up their GED.com accounts with them. And that is an opportunity for them to say, okay, this is our program, you'll see it, click here to share your results so that I can connect and I can see how you're doing. That's one way to kind of cement that connection. And then maybe there are other places you can think about in the intake process or with your students that you can remind them to go into their profile if they've already set up their account and select your center so that you can see their information and connect with them.
Okay, and thank you for that. And the other thing is that, as you're looking at within the local program itself as a teacher, I'm going to come back to what CT said in terms of making sure that students come in and get that they get involved in getting that GED.com account. It doesn't cost them anything, but they can certainly get information, and it kind of keeps them on track as well. But, that's one of the things where you can advocate within your programs for making sure that, when students go through new to student orientation, that they know, hey, if your goal is to get your high school equivalency and you want to pass the GED test, then let's make sure you get signed up early. So there's so many different things that we all kind of have to do as we're working through these different types of things that are coming in. I need someone who can just briefly say just a few words about GED Flash, GED Live, etc. Scott, you want to take that one on? Or Chris? Chris, you can as well.
Sure. I didn't see the question come through, but GED Flash is our practice questions product. We worked with Aztec Software to create this in regard to students asking for more practice options. So there are over 6,000 items across all 4 subject areas. And if students purchase Flash through their GED account, it'll be the Flash for Students product. They can access those products through their mobile phone. If an educator is interested in offering this to all of their students, though, then we recommend that they purchase it through Aztec, and we can give you a code to get 10% off that purchase, or we can line up a demo with our Aztec partners so that you can see it firsthand. That version of Flash has all of the reporting that you might need just as any other online tools. So you'll be able to see time on task and how your students are doing with those practice questions. What's great about the tool is that the student answers the question and then they get immediate feedback on why the answer was correct and how they would have arrived at that answer. So it'll go through step by step explaining the answers to each question. And the nice thing about it too is that GED Flash is available when you go through Aztec Software. It is available through their offline technology as well. So it works for corrections and other organizations that can't be on the internet all the time. So that's GD Flash. We also have a companion piece that works with GD Flash, which is called GD Play. And those are short instructional videos presented by Kaplan instructors. And they also align to the GED test content. So you can assign a certain set of videos for your student to watch, as well as a certain set of flash practice questions for them to practice those skills that they learned about in the video. So both of those products are available through Aztec. If you reach out to your SRM, they will definitely get you in touch with the right people or get you more information. We do usually have a sign-up sheet, and I don't know if that is available through GoToWebinar, but if you can see the sign-up sheet, there's a way that you can input all of your contact information, and we can get that to our Aztec partners on your behalf so that you can, again, get that 10% off code if you choose to purchase either or both of those products. And then I think, was there a question on GD Live as well?
I think what we're going to do very quickly, since we have about 8 minutes left, there are a couple of things I want to share with you, with all of you very quickly, and then we can always come back with, because there's more information on GED Live and the Writing Tutor. They can find that, Chris, where on GED.com?
The information about GED Writing Tutor and GED Live would be on either GED.com or shop.gedmarketplace.com.
Okay, so possibly the marketplace. Fantastic. Okay, as far as resources go, GED.com has so many different things, and please don't forget that as students are going through that, there are GED study guides for each one of the individual tests. They're free. You can download those and, you know, have them for students. It's a wonderful resource, plus the tutorials and everything that's out there. So if you're not familiar with the GED.com, on the student side, you need to be, as well as on the educator side. And if we have, I want to go through very quickly, this is for your reference. So what you're going to see over the next couple of slides is we actually have each of the SRMs, their GED email address, and their contact information, their phone numbers, their cell phones. Plus, underneath that, you will find the states that they're primarily responsible for. So remember, there's always somebody out there that can help you with all the different things that you're doing. If you take a look through this, and yes, Adora was right when she was going through the logo, and she said, oh, I'm not going to list all those states because there's so many. But I want you to keep that in mind. We have everyone's contact, and also, you know, we have Thomas, who works with not only Canada, but also here in the US, working with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So that can be something for you who may be out there in corrections. Earlier in this, I referenced the webinars and the archive. I want everybody to be aware that we have so many different webinars that are listed out there, and this one has been recorded. It will be posted in about 48 hours, as well as the PowerPoint that goes along with it, so you can always refer back to it, refer some of your friends and coworkers to it. But as you go through, the one thing you need to know is you need to go under educators and admins and ignore this part, log in and sign up. That part is for people who are, for students who are going into GED.com as a student. There is no registration, nothing that you have to do to sign in as an educator. And you can see there's topics that are out there that we have reading to learn, which may be one of those things someone wants to refer back to. And also, I know that we keep, updating and making the GED.com site better and better all the time, but we even did a webinar just about the GED.com itself, and when it made some of the initial changes coming through. So I'm going to ask if there are any additional questions that we did not get handled as we went through, because there have been so many, and hopefully what we were able to do today was to really give you some good information that you can take back and use with you as you go through. And having said that, I'll say thank you to each of you for being with us today. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your questions. Communicate with GED Testing Service, help@GED.com. And I'd like if you wouldn't mind, CT, could you kind of close us out here, some final thoughts for us?
Sure. One quick correction, got an email wrong. For any of you in Liz's states, Arizona, Colorado, Hawaii, Kansas, Nevada, New Mexico, or Utah, it's actually Elizabeth.Lanphear, Lanphear, instead of Liz. So just wanted to point that one out really quickly. And other than that, go ahead.
I want to address Molly Dugan's comment that she made about administrators there. And so can I just say that all state relationship managers work very closely with the state office and the GED administrators. As educators, what we suggest that you do or recommend that you do is to become really familiar with your state policies, rules, and regulations. And if you have any questions around that, you should always begin with the state office and your GED state administrator, because there are some things that we deal with that vary from state to state in terms of state policy, rules, and regulations. So I just wanted to make sure we clarified that.
Good point.
Thank you so much for that, Adora. And until I can get this changed in another way, I wanted to make sure that I put this out here. So yes, rather than Liz, which we all finally call her, her email is Elizabeth.Lanphear. So we really appreciate that. So final words or final questions?
Sure. One quick thing. There was a little bit of confusion about the online proctored testing and underage. So when they're taking an online proctored test, that's where the over 18 guardian proxy needs to sign off for them. And it really is about them being recorded in state law. That's not necessary for in-person testing. In-person testing, they would have already gotten parental consent. They've gone through an exception queue. They've been approved by their state. They just need to show up to the testing center, and they don't need that adult with them at that time.
Okay, perfect.
I think that's it for the questions. We'll go back through and see if we have a couple more outstanding that we can answer on chat. But I think that's a bulk of the questions. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for everything that you do for adult learners. Don't ever be afraid to contact us. Contact your state relationship manager. We want to connect with you. We want to hear how things are going. We want your questions, feedback. That's what we're here for. So don't hesitate to do that. Take full advantage of everything we have on the website when you have time. We have a lot of those resources there. And Tuesdays for Teachers obviously is a great resource. With that, I would just say thank you on behalf of the entire GED Testing Service team for everything you all do.
Thank you so much, CT. Thank you for all of the rest of you for everything that you do. We really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you in May. Take care, everyone.